Hello, welcome. Today we are diving into LinkedIn with LinkedIn expert Iris Culp. She's going to be sharing some of her best nuggets. Iris, from her website, she says, I save time for business leaders in building connections to an ideal audience. This is done by data driven tools to create crisp and compelling branding, message clarity, and credibility, which we all love data driven. Iris, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me. That is a bit of a mouthful, isn't it, when we say it out loud? And you nailed it. Yes, I'm a data nerd and proud of it. Happens to be National Introverts Week this week, and I'm like, I so resonate with that. I am one.
Yeah, all us data nerds, I think, are slightly introverted. So, before we dive into today, we're talking about the three misconceptions people have about LinkedIn. But I want to
Yeah.
ask, how did you become a LinkedIn expert and strategist?
I love that question. I have had someone say the equivalent to me of, okay, gosh, Iris, you've got like white hair and you're that sixth decade you're in it, and how in the world are you a social media person? And so super interesting uh, journey, as life often takes us to unexpected places. But really it comes down to, I love to tell stories. I love to help others tell stories, and LinkedIn is such a unique space in terms of the data that's behind it. And it's, I'm going to say, the most compelling platform. I actually got into marketing, and all of my work, my 30 plus years, is really trying to untangle the human process of communicating effectively. I grew up in a family where, quite honestly, my family of origin, communicating was pretty darn mysterious. So I think that's what drove me through 20 years of HR, and then really more than a decade of marketing. And I started actually with Yahoo groups, then Facebook, and now I'm in LinkedIn as my specialty. So it really came from helping, in the last decade, helping laid off executives market themselves on LinkedIn. Pandemic hit, and I thought, wow, there's a lot of business leaders just struggling to survive. And I chose to pivot and just support that group. And of course, I did a survey and to confirm my suspicions. And yes, data driven.
That's awesome. And I got to say, like, I always refer to LinkedIn as the social media for grown-ups, but
Oh, I like that.
I know a lot of people though, and I was like this when I first joined LinkedIn. Like, you go in, you join, and then you halfway fill out your profile, connect to a couple people, and then kind of, okay, I don't really know what I'm supposed to do next. And I think that's why it's so great to have somebody like you on, because you can share with us. So, what are the misconceptions people have about LinkedIn?
Probably the biggest one is that it's what it used to be. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
certainly,
online resume.
right. It is so not that anymore. It has totally morphed, as a lot of successful companies do, totally morphed from what the original idea was into something completely different. It's not an online resume. It actually has 15 times more content impressions around business development. Um, than it does around job seeking. So the scope of the platform is a little hard to grasp, because the data says that roughly every 3 seconds someone gets hired because of LinkedIn. And think of, there's 15 times more business, I'm going to say, deals, events, etc., happening. So that's I'd say number one. I'm toying with the idea of coming out with a little mini webinar that says, "Hey, LinkedIn for Business. We're not in Kansas anymore," because because it is completely different, Toto. Um, so that's one, and then the other, I would say, and it's really right there with it, which is that LinkedIn is mysterious. It's not really mysterious when you understand, and this is one of the reasons I'm kind of a big LinkedIn fan. In 2019, LinkedIn saw what was happening with their platform, and they moved quicker and they are constantly moving, which is the good and challenging thing, right? But they said, "Oh my gosh, we've basically become an echo chamber for the celebrities, the Richard Bransons, the Bill Gates, blah blah blah. They don't need more. online presence, and they really designed a massive shift over to, and they even characterize it as senior design or senior product leader Pete Davies at the time said, "We're here to connect people who are talking about things that they care about." So people that are connected, we want to facilitate that conversation going forward.
And, I think I really, resonate with that because 'cause I've been on LinkedIn for a long time, and there was a
Yeah,
period of time where I kinda stopped spending a lot of time on LinkedIn because it did feel like
yeah, it
it was,
was.
like, the big names were overwhelming everything, and you really couldn't have conversations with people, but now people are coming back to it, and
Yes.
I'm having more interesting conversations with people. I'm seeing my connections, and I'm seeing the people that I want to be
Yes,
influenced by and
yes,
connected with.
yes, and, they've always been respected for security and, professionalism, and now I mean, that move has been in place for almost 5 years, and it really is showing up, and just an added thing, I had someone email me this morning with a question that goes right to this point. um, since AI is big and ChatGPT, LinkedIn is using AI to, I'm going to say, start kind of a, this is a topic that AI has generated. You're one of the five experts or a few experts or whatever to be invited to make a personal contribution to this article. I don't know if you've gotten any of those, Andrea, but
No, I haven't seen that yet, but
yeah, I've been invited to, of course, I'm active, but I've been invited to probably contribute to, I don't know, 5 different times, so 25 different articles. Um, and I've done one. But someone was questioning, is this a legitimate thing? But yeah, I mean, so LinkedIn is taking it to that level. And lots of times it's really frustrating because it's like, oh, LinkedIn keeps changing, keeps changing. Well, they keep changing because they're focused on what is valuable to our audience. So when they keep changing, it's because we're changing. Like, they're responding to what people are enjoying, and they're keeping the content high. Um, so that it's just, if you know how something's designed, it's designed to drive conversation. So it's not designed to sell stuff, it's designed to facilitate conversation. So that's probably the two. It's not mysterious. If you focus on it's here to drive conversation with my community, then a lot of things fall into place. Number 3, and it's probably less of a misconception than it is, just an awareness piece, and so my number 3 would be that think about LinkedIn as a Boolean operator, and what I mean by that, it's a search engine. So just say LinkedIn is a search engine. Let's not forget that, and that simplifies a lot. So that can take away the mysterious feeling. Like if you're looking for someone who talks about marketing, perhaps, you put in a hashtag marketing, you follow that. You know what I mean? It's a
Mhm.
Boolean operator. It's think of it as a Google of sorts. So you can find people and you can find topics. So those are my top 3.
Yeah. Well, and also related to that of it being a search engine, like, unlike Facebook or some of the other
Mhm.
platforms, LinkedIn still plays nicely with Google.
Yes, it does.
Like, I often will take articles from my website that are performing well in Google, republish
Mhm.
them on LinkedIn, and in a very short period of time, my LinkedIn article will show up higher on Google than the original
Yes.
article on my website. So it's
W
really helpful
It
even for just
is.
getting found on people searching on Google.
It's massive, and so I'm gonna step out my actual knowledge base, a little bit here, but as I understand it from my SEO expert friends, it has something called a Moz score, and I understand enough to know that's important, and it's the bar, but LinkedIn's default Moz score, if you publish an article, is 100, right? So it's at the top. So, yeah, it's really a useful tool, and then sometimes people say, "Well, I'm the CEO or the president. I don't need a LinkedIn." Well, you have an online presence. Pay attention. I remember a story about a president who said that, and then someone said, "Well, let's Google you," and then some messy divorce details was what came up. You know, if you're not controlling your presence, it's controlling you. You have one, so don't let it default. That's my advice.
Well, yeah, because I know I have some relatives who spend virtually no time online, and yet
Uh-huh.
if you Google them, they're
Yeah.
there. So
Yes.
if you want to, have a say in what's being talked about you online, then you
Hmm.
need to be present, and LinkedIn is absolutely a very powerful way to do it. So when somebody comes to you and they're like, struggling to figure out what they're supposed to be doing on LinkedIn, what
Yeah.
is something that you recommend them to start with? Like, what's sort of the starting point for
Right.
getting the handle on your LinkedIn
Yeah.
presence?
Well, you generally want to start with making sure you, I'm going to say, are clear with your expertise and who you serve. So that you want to brush up your brand, if you will, your profile. I do mini boot camps. I do, longer 6 week training programs. But yeah, you want to start with the basics because it is a little bit like if you're going to start posting, you want to make sure the broccoli's out of your teeth, right?
Absolutely.
So yeah, a brand refresh, or it can be as simple as, make sure you have a really decent profile pic. It's a dead giveaway if you got a boutonniere and it's, obviously you're been cropped out of a wedding photo. That just hurts me. Um,
Or when you see somebody, you go to their profile and they haven't updated their cover image, so
yes,
it's just
yeah,
that gray background, then they've not been on
they're
LinkedIn
not
forever.
active. Yeah. And yeah, I'm a little bit of a maniac about that banner cover image because I just consider it super valuable real estate and like a billboard, and it should carry your message. It really should. So yeah, just start with a profile makeover. I actually offer 20-minute complimentary mini profile audits, and people can record them and save them, and it'll be very stream of consciousness, but um, having worked with LinkedIn for more than a decade pretty seriously, I have opinions and I'm happy to share them. Uh, so I don't lack for an opinion. But yeah, I would start with the just your profile, and make sure you're using the creator tools, and some of the things they've turned on in the last 2 years, because it really is a great opportunity. And you do have an online presence. Are you paying attention to it?
Yeah.
And that's the question.
So
Yeah.
I have my opinion about this, but so what's your opinion on turning on the creator profile for your LinkedIn?
Yes. Oh, great question. Love this. So it's if you're going to be on LinkedIn and if you're going to be there for a business purpose, my opinion, turn it on. Some people are, what's the right word, don't like it because it defaults from connections to followers.
Mhm.
But, if you're there and you're active and you're creating content, first of all, LinkedIn, with some changes about 6 months ago, is segmenting the world of LinkedIn into creators and non creators. And this is something that only came out in the data in the last several months, but it literally positions your profile, I'm going to say it simplified, to the top of the heap, because they're rewarding people who are consistently providing quality content. LinkedIn is so massive, they have to keep, I'm going to say, segmenting to some degree to keep the quality up. So the fact that your creator mode is on puts you, I'm just going to say, business class or whatever. Maybe not the best analogy, but it's a good way to think about it, because you're going to be in a sphere of, when you do post, you're going to be positioned a little bit differently than someone who doesn't have creator mode on. And then it gives you that chance to have, these are the hashtags, or these are my subject matter expertise. And then the featured section of your profile is really so much more visible and dominant. I mean, I think it's all pluses. And if you're consistent, it doesn't really matter if it's connections or followers. And now when you post, there's actually a button that shows up next to the post that says click to follow. So they're trying to encourage people to, well, as we talked about early on, kind of build that community of conversation.
And I mean, I know when it first came out, I was a little disturbed about the idea of follow versus connect, because a lot of
Right,
people don't know that just because somebody says follow doesn't mean that you can't invite them to connect. You just have to
right,
click a couple more buttons. But I
exactly.
but I think one of the nice things about this follow feature is if somebody discovers you by accident, like, it's not like you've met them at a networking event, they've just discovered one of your pieces of content.
Hmm.
Sometimes people hesitate a little bit about sending the invitation to connect because they don't know you, but because they can now follow you, it's sort of like on Twitter. You don't have to ask permission to follow somebody on Twitter, and it's kind of the same on LinkedIn. They can follow you, and you can see who's following you. So if it's somebody you
Right.
wanna connect with, you can
Yeah.
go and say, "Hey, I
Yeah.
saw you're following me, let's connect." And it's just one easier way for people to stay in your circle without having to commit to actually connecting with
Right.
you.
No, you're saying it so articulately. I think, I mean, when it first came out too, I was like, oh, connect, follow. And I was a little bit, just thinking about it. But I think it was LinkedIn recognizing the value and recognizing that, LinkedIn used to be, hey, these are the 17 people I know in real life kind of thing, right?
Yes.
And it's not that anymore. So I think that follow slash connect, and you're right, people may not have dug into and see that yes, you can still connect, and it is more of a hey, we're across the room at a chamber event, and I see you, so we might just bump into each other. It's more that hey, I recognize your face kind of vibe. That is often a real person because I always like to take LinkedIn to how would this play out if we were in real life, and there's always an analogy. And that's when people say, well, do I connect and do I say something, a personal note? And I'm like, oh, yeah, absolutely. Would you ever walk up to someone at a chamber event, shake their hand, and not say hello? If you're going to connect, say, hey, I saw we both graduated from X alumna, or I used to live in Tulsa, or, whatever it is. But follow, I really am starting to love the follow. And
Yeah.
yeah, you
And I
nailed it.
I love what you said about that comment. Like, that's something that I always try to do is whether I'm inviting somebody to connect or somebody's connected with me is go and look at
Mhm.
their profile.
Yeah,
Put some effort into it
exactly.
and, either find something that we have in common or something that I have a question about, and
Right. Yeah. And then continue the conversation. When I accept a connection and make sure it's a legitimate person, I mean, yeah, of course, we've all been pitch slapped, right? Connect, buy my stuff, buy my trinket, buy my widget, so, you know, yeah, I mean, we're not going to control everything. So I look and make sure it's like, okay, this person probably isn't going to pitch slap me. And then I say, yeah, I look forward to reading your content and getting acquainted. And, just yeah, I've had some great conversations with people I met on LinkedIn, and it's great. And LinkedIn events is kind of underutilized. That's another thing that have actually led to some really close friends and colleagues and
yeah.
clients. So yeah, it's
Uh,
great.
Now, I think we could probably go all afternoon talking about LinkedIn because it sounds like we're both like big fans.
Yeah.
But um, to keep it short, how can people get in touch with you if they want to know more?
Right. Hey, Iris Culp. I see growth on LinkedIn. So that's the easy way. I do have a website there, yourlinkedinexpert.com. And I can share with you this tool that I offer that's a 4-minute tip about it's called my Tuesday tips. If someone wants to just get that and break it down a bite size at a time, you'll see me, and you don't ever have to connect if you don't want to. But yeah, find me on LinkedIn or the website yourlinkedinexpert.com, and then you can I those 4-minute tips are my solution to how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time. People are usually intimidated by LinkedIn, so I came up with that concept. And I will say, I just people are really giving me some kind feedback that it's helpful. So I got one this morning that said, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know this," and I'm like, "Oh, cool, that was fun."
That's excellent. So definitely follow or connect with Iris on LinkedIn. Check out her webpage, and I will put the link to her pro tips in the comments so that you can get some pro tips.
There
Thank
you
you, Iris. This has been lovely and a fabulous conversation. And, if there's something that you learned, put a comment below. Tell us what something you took away from today's conversation. We'd love to hear it. Thanks again for joining us. And thank you, Iris.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I love to train and educate. It's my passion. Thanks, Andrea. Thanks for